I mean, I think most, you guys don't really need introducing, but in case somebody has been living in a dark cave forever, could you introduce yourself? Sarah, do you want to start with introducing yourself?
Yes. So my name is Sara Bergström. I'm the CMO with Next Games. Next Games has been founded in 2013. We're now a couple of years old, published 2 games, The Compass Point West, which is our first game, and then The Walking Dead No Man's Land, our second game, which is based on the hit TV show. We're about 70 people right now, and working on some exciting new stuff as well.
Cool. Willem. Oi. Willem.
Hey, hi. Hi. Wilhelm, head of games at Rovio. Been doing mobile games myself since 2004.
Forever.
It's been a good ride. It's been a fun ride. I've seen the industry change actually quite a few times along the way. Joined Rovio in 2014 and became head of games this year. Rovio is known for especially its 50-second game, which was Angry Birds, and now we try to take very good care of the bird while also trying to accomplish many new things. We have a few games that are doing really well in the US at the moment: Angry Birds 2, Angry Birds Pop, Angry Birds Friends, and Nibblers. Encourage you to download all of them and pay tons of money for the IAPs in those games, and enjoy and look out for some new stuff coming out from us soon.
And hi everyone, I'm Petri. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Seriously, one of the founders of the company. Been working with games since 1995 in companies like Remedy and as well as Rovio. And overall, games are super exciting and it's a wonderful field to work in. Definitely enjoying third time around.
Yeah, and I think this is really what I want to get to the bottom of, because obviously, we have, you were involved in Rovio early on. I remember when, I think I put the first proper Rovio game live. No one's been able to prove me wrong yet. The Darkest Sphere. I'm still a huge fan of Darkest Sphere. Some of us remember this. I keep lobbying to get them to bring it back, but that's just because I'm sad like that. But we're
going to bring it back with Playman.
Oh, bring it back with Playman Winter Sports. Anyone know what Playman Winter Sports was? So you will remember the sauna games. Imagine being British and releasing a game that has basically finished sauna sports in the game. And we did it right with it, didn't we? We actually did okay with it. Anyway, enough of that sidetrack. But the whole point of this is that there's something magical that seems to happen with people who have a success, not necessarily manage to get the next success from it, but then go and do something else. So let's try and break this up into sort of pieces. So first thing is the hit and the initial hit a curse as much as it is a benefit? So in terms of your experience, building games, getting involved in games, how would you describe this first hit experience?
Of course, you have to sort of define for yourself what's a hit first.
Yes.
If we look at Next Games, we did very well with Compass Point West, which is our first game, launched with a new team. It's not huge, it's not on the top 10 grossing charts, but we think it was a great success. We have a community that's super excited about the game, very passionate about it, even though it's a small project, if you compare it to The Walking Dead No Man's Land, which is our second game. And initially, we feel that it's a hit for us. We've been consistently working very, very hard on that for the past 10 months. We've learned tons. And we're actually at a very good place right now before the next season of The Walking Dead starts. And very excited about, what levels of hitness we can hit next fall.
But I mean, even Compass Point West itself, I think is unequivocally a hit. But the team that makes that aren't new to the block. They've had experience before. And how much value did that previous experience bring to making sure that project was as good as it was?
Well, first of all, the team is everything, especially when you start from new. The team is everything, and when you search for funding for your company, because that's all you have. And those are the people who are actually going to make things happen. Everybody can have great ideas, but then you actually have to execute, and that's the hardest part. What was the question again?
I'm just trying to work out how much the skill of the experience of the.
It does. I mean, when you have people on board who've actually done it before, they've failed, which is very important, but they've had success as well. And when you bring that all on board on your new project, that's imperative.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Petri first, because I think we have a slightly different journey we can talk about, but I think it's a nice sort of segue to you, because obviously you did the PC thing and obviously the bird, and then you've left that to do the slugs. And how is that process, that changing of mindset that must have come from that, affected you?
It's every time you're starting something new, it's a massive recalibration. Basically, if I'm looking at working at Rovio, we had an incredible amount of resources. We could put teams of 30 people to work on products when needed. Then going from there into just having 6 people in a single room, starting to build a new game, starting to build a new company from scratch. It's a recalibration that certainly takes time. It's kind of getting into the mindset of like, this is all we have. Let's start building up again. Is both kind of scary, but it's also super exciting because you are literally starting from a clean slate.
But all of you guys are so, hugely established in your backgrounds, and and I know Andrew very well because he used to be my commercial guy back in the days of 3, and he's not a gamer at all. I mean, I don't know if he's changed since, but he never used to be. But my point with that is his expertise is really clear. Your expertise is really clear. All of your team's expertise, and you all work together, or I think you mostly work together. So you had this incredible bond, I would imagine. Is that really? That's what I see. Is that
absolutely
the reality?
And kind of working through any sort of intense shipping or seminar that unifies people, and that's without a doubt. And if to elaborate a little bit more about the experience concretely helping, it's one thing that I find super useful is just more and more you start seeing patterns. You start going like, okay, you're not dealing with the same with this problem for the first time. You can relate to on like previous time we had this issue, then what happened was this. Therefore, let's at least try to fail in a new and innovative way.
Make new mistakes, not old ones.
Yeah, exactly. But you're coming out of the blocks really fast, aren't you? Because you've got rid of all of the kind of legacy bullshit that you had to deal with because of the history of how you got there, and now you're zooming ahead.
On some level, kind of the small teams can move super fast. You don't have any of the previous commitments, so you can focus on the essential. The other thing that I've found super useful is just in general having such a wonderful network of people. There's first of all, by now I'm actually much more able to say I don't know. I don't have any idea on how to actually approach this problem, but let's call up somebody that I know. Wilhelm probably is dealing with similar things, so let's ask him or similar. Yeah. And whereas previously, like I would, or say 10, 15 years ago, I would always think that a leader has to have all the answers, and even if I didn't know, I'd probably, give my best guess as the answer, and listening to people going like, hey, I don't have a clue, what do you think? Is actually something that makes a big difference.
I actually wonder if that's something we should have covered in the panel we talked about why Finland, because I think having the ability to say I don't know is actually something I think is particularly good here. But the reason I was delaying with you, Willem, is because I think you're kind of doing the opposite journey in some ways, because you've done your own thing, and you've done the old early days when you were selling me games, and so long we go. And then now...
I tend to refer to that as the era where mobile games was a really dumb idea to get
Dumb
into.
idea, yeah. We were such a dumb idea. I mean, being early is wrong. That's all it is. You know, it's not smart. It's not future thinking. You're just wrong. Anyway, but my point being is that you're now back in Rovio, a company that's had all that success historically, was, you know, let's face it, struggling a little bit to move forward, and now you're sitting there and you're starting to sort of turn those. But for you, you're coming into this like third, fourth, fifth. You know, you tell me how many numbers, but you know. How does that change it? You coming in fresh to a company like that, how does that affect your ability to function?
That's a great question. Let me struggle through the answer. It's been like, first of all, it's been an exhilarating ride over the past 2 years that I've been part of Rovio, which is just the whole history of Rovio is remarkable in many senses of the word, and. The truth to be told, like just a remarkable amount of mistakes have been made at Rovio along the years, and there's no reason to say anything else. Learning opportunities, and I think that the company has grown up so much throughout the years. I joined 2014, and literally 3 weeks after we started the first large scale. Reorganization, which was needed, and then the year after there was another one, which was needed, and I think now we're better equipped, better organized, much more focused than we have been, and the part that I think the industry doesn't know and truth to be told hasn't really been communicated was that the games business was from a revenue point of view growing throughout these periods. The games business, I mean, of course we had phenomenally high ambitions, and maybe at some point those ambitions were actually not reasonable, but it was growing from a top-line revenue point of view throughout these times. So with the focus exercises and with the product vision exercises and many of the things that Petri was there actually putting in place, and then Yami was there to further work on, and Sara was actually also there. We all have our share of Rovio history. Was there putting in place. We'll say this year it's all coming together, and it's not really about what has happened this year or last year. It's just that. It's all now finally coming together. And
so you're just reaping the rewards of all these other people's work.
Thanks, Petri.
but actually, that's a really important point, because on Petri's talk earlier, your talk earlier, you talked about not don't believe the data because the data lies to you and all this kind of stuff. And I think really is that maybe the point is that when you're starting afresh, you're creating a clean slate with those lessons to build on. But how do you actually focus on the right thing to move forward with? You know.
Well, again, having been through the same process a couple of times is very useful in terms of identifying some of the core patterns, and ultimately it all comes down to very simple, like just focus on creating great games. It's all about building substance, but being able to focus on that, being able to. The other thing that I find very useful is that in general, like you can just look for the people who fit your company and culture. And you can, early on when building the company, what you're doing is you're building the culture of the company that's going to define it for the next 5 years or hopefully next 50 years. And being cognizant of that, most people just, when they start building a company, they go like product, and don't really think about the implications of what kind of environment they build or how they form the culture. It happens mostly accidentally. And now it's something that we've been able to prioritize from the start on let's actually think, let's talk. Internally we've talked about what kind of culture do we want to work in? What kind of values do we believe in? And our values are always be shipping. I mean, let's focus on the product and prioritize product over PowerPoint. But at the same time, these are cognizant conversations as opposed to things that just happen when you start a company.
So, Sarah, from your point of view, is that mirrored in Next Games? Is that something that's been key to you, the ability to be able to focus on not just building a product, but also building the company?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting what you said, Petri, about being able to say, I don't know. That's where Next Game started from, when we were establishing the small team and growing that. We kind of made this promise to each other that we're never ever, no one's gonna pretend that they know something when they don't. And there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. We're gonna say that out loud and figure things out together as we go. So I think that too is very important. The other thing, as I mentioned, team is everything you have, and the team is, who's essentially then shipping the games and making the products. We started to work, like really focus on our culture from very early on. And of course, how you work on that, it changes when the company grows. We were 10 people when I joined, so it was very easy to get together in one room, talk about our values, what we believe in, what are the things that, how we want to behave towards each other, towards our partners, what kind of games do we want to make, how we're going to put the players first. That's very important for us, the very first thing that we think of. But then as you grow, you need to really carefully sort of design the way how you bring the values that you've decided on together, how you bring that in your daily work, in your daily practices, how you're talking about them, how you encourage people to live by them. So it's not something that the founders or the management team decides on or creates for the employees, but that's something that you work on together. And we do a lot of small things at the company. For example, one of the big things, in addition to saying I don't know out loud, is saying thanks, and we pay a lot of attention to that. And we have this small thing every Friday after the workday. On Fridays, all of us get together, even though we're 70 right now. We get together and do a little round of saying thanks, from small things, from big things, something nice that your colleague has done for you, whether it's work-related, whether it's just that, this guy next to me went to the gym with me over lunch or something, small things. That's very important.
Cool. So looking after. So, you're coming in, you came into Rovio, again, relatively fresh of eyes. There's a lot of people in the team who also you've worked with previously, and new people you're bringing in who've got lots of experience. How do you sustain a cultural identity around Rovio when you're in that kind of circumstance? And how important is that?
So yet another great question I'll struggle through. The history and background is provides its own set of opportunities and challenges. The fact is that Rovio had this massive hit game in 2010 that just kept on growing, and the company decided to scale itself and grow with it at an astonishing rate, going from 12 people to 850 in quite a short period of time, and that itself presents its own challenges and has a knock-on effect on a company's culture in a quite the fundamental way. And that spirit that was there at Rovio at the time, where it was truly felt that we can accomplish anything, we can do anything, is something you want to preserve. That spirit, you want to preserve, like this feeling of we can really accomplish big things, while of course the exercise in 14 and 15 was very, very much one of focus. So trying to focus that spirit and that attention to something which is a little bit more clearly defined what it is, and a direction where we're heading. And I think this year and the years before has been all about that. And now I think I'm losing the question a bit along the way, but it is that has been kind of a key exercise for especially the games business unit that I speak mostly for in sessions like this. Preserving that spirit, but trying to crystallize, especially who we want to be in the future, because a lot of things have changed also along the way. Games were premium when Angry Birds became a big phenomenon, and flipping around that to free to play is something that Petri was there doing, and that is culturally a very, very big thing to do.
Change.
It's a huge change culturally for the company. At the same time as you're growing at this rate, and that really doesn't happen overnight. And I think that over the past few years, it's gradually really turned around, and we see now that we truly are a free-to-play company in the game space from a games business unit point of view.
And I think that at least Rovio had that background with Angry Birds of it, considering it like a service with the continual release of new content.
That's correct. So like from that point of view, there's certain aspects of what Rovio did under Petri's and the team's leadership, which was quite groundbreaking at the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like the idea of doing updates constantly and bringing out new things constantly to players that wasn't a new idea for Rovio per se. It's just the way that you do it is different, but the mindset of putting fans right front, square, and center in your attention was there. It's just the ways and the means have changed dramatically along the way of the history of Angry Birds and Rovio games.
So, Petri, you
actually, to continue a bit on that same vector, for me, one of the biggest learnings at Rovio, which I found super exciting and exhilarating, was the incredible level of ambition within the company. We set the goals far, far higher than I would have ever expected. I'd like, let's literally shoot for the moon.
You placed the bird in space. Like you literally did that.
Yes, but at the same time, kind of that was wonderful experience in like, if you aim ridiculously high, you set the goals so high that you feel really uneasy with them on like, I'm not really comfortable at aiming this, but let's give it a shot anyway. And you're going to get somewhere pretty amazing anyway. You may not hit the original target, but it was a great experience especially here in Finland. We tend to often approach things from we're just working as hard as we can, and let's see where that leads. Whereas we went like, no way, we're going this high, let's start doing it. And that's kind of there has to be a healthy dose of crazy when you're building up things. You need to really drive beyond what you believe is possible, and then magic will happen as well.
Will happen. But to build on that, though, you've had this company with all these resources and this crazy ambition, and now you're coming into your new company and you don't have those resources anymore.
We're still crazy ambitious, though. Yeah. We have a massively big vision that we want to build with best teams, and we're executing on that. And I mean, we have set the target of we want to be the Pixar of mobile. We want to build from scratch, starting with a few people in a single room. We want to build one of the big global entertainment creators, entertainment IP creators on a very massive scale, and that's a vision that's going to take several years to realize, or possibly a decade. We'll find out. But
10-year plan.
We've started, and at the same time, if I'm looking back at the early days of Max Payne, nobody had shipped games in Finland. Console games were basically nobody had done one, and we started with like, well, we want to create this massively big film noir title, and going for a crazy level of ambition is generally. It's a good starting point. Then dealing with that reality on how do you actually get there is challenging and sometimes painful. But sometimes it also works out, and you never get there if you don't target that level of.
Well, again, that's a good experience, good example in point, because you didn't just make a first-person shooter single-player game. You made one that changed the way we look at how you do first-person shooters. You know, that bullet time thing changed people's. I mean, you can hardly go away from a single-player game that hasn't got some mode like that. You know, I think that crazy really defines it. So is it crazy in next games? I mean, well, I know this is true, but anyway, what's the crazy look like in next games?
Well, I think it is pretty crazy to think of that, you know, five guys would, you know, make a game out of the world's biggest TV show to start with, you know, with no team around them, essentially, at the time. You know, and that it is, you know, it's a big ambition, and we made it happen. But there's there's all kinds of crazy under the hood as well on how we think about creating partnerships with the IP holders. That's actually very important how you construct that, because IP-based games have, you know, traditionally have had a very bad reputation among the gamers, because they're usually like projects that are hurried through. You know, they have a set deadline, they need to go out at a certain time, and that usually ends up with a, you know, low-quality product or something that you wouldn't necessarily want to ship. Whereas with us, we started looking at the partnerships in a totally different way. We wanted to partner with them on a much more deeper level, you know, than what you would traditionally do, and that's one of the reasons why AMC and Lionsgate are investors in Next Games as well, so that they also have a stake in what we do and where the company is going, and on a total different level beyond the, you know, one project that you're working on at a time. So there's a lot of sort of big thinking behind those decisions as well, which don't necessarily sort of they're not like inherently visible. But then, you know, we believe that results in great games and a better execution on the brand and the IP, and really bringing the TV show into life when we have creators on board, for example, from the TV show side in a different way than you know what you would normally do.
Because I was interviewing the guys that made the other Walking Dead game, the one based on the comic, in Vancouver earlier this year, and you know, clearly the brand's incredibly loved, and you know, and the level of detail of knowledge, you know, is enormous, absolutely enormous. How do you deal with that? I mean, that's intimidating as a process.
It is, and the Walking Dead fan community it's huge, and it's ridiculously passionate about the brand. So it is actually quite intimidating to make a game for people who know that IP better than, you know, the people who actually make the TV show, and they have a lot to say as well. So you know, you better not let them down, otherwise you're not going anywhere. So we did a lot of research when we started with the game development, a lot of choices on you know, with the game design as well, on how we're gonna bring the TV show into life, and that's sort of the ambition level that we're headed towards in our next projects as well. So basically, world-class IP. That's.
So, I mean, obviously getting that IP needs the connections, and needs the, you know, the confidence from the IP holder that you can deliver on the goods. You know, we've got a lot of indie game developers out here. What advice would you give them in terms of if they're setting up now? Do they need to find somebody with that background and experience to be part of their team? Are there tricks that they can use? Are there lessons they can learn from what you've learned already and be able to be successful as they are?
Well, there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. But first of all, obviously, you have to look at your own team, if you have one already, on, you know, what they're passionate about. I mean, you know, if people are passionate about first-person shooters, it doesn't necessarily make sense to make a match 3 game with that team. So there's that, first of all, you know, looking at the IP that's out there and finding out what you're excited about. But then there's also obviously a lot of commercial aspects to it, you know, sort of boring sounding stuff like not being cheap with the lawyers and whatnot, making sure you have, you know, sort of that side covered and all of that. But then there's a lot of things like, you know, how... And this really is like a bulk of the work, getting to know the partner in the process of negotiating the contract. Basically, how are they able to support you, from a marketing perspective, from a creative perspective? Is that possible, first of all? And then the second follow-up question to that is, are they willing to do that? It's not like, it's not common to have such a close relationship in this space as we do with AMC, for example. So there's a lot of considerations that go into there, and then how you're like in practice building up this the collaboration on a day-to-day basis, because that's how you want to work with the creatives on the IP side. It's not checking up every 6 months or so. That will not work.
It's almost sharing a flat. So, what's the lesson that you would like to share with these indie guys? What's the mistakes that or the kind of successes that you found that if they pick onto that, they're going to be more likely to be successful first time round?
So when setting up, even if it is a new company or if it's in pivot in strategy or a turnaround or whatever, what Petri touched upon is really important. And actually, Sara, you followed up, and I was rambling around the subject myself as well, which is culture. And it is like that is basically the end result of people, products, and IP, and everything that goes around in your company, and putting that in focus, which quite honestly rarely companies do, is really important. And as I grow up with this industry, and as I grow up myself, slowly but surely, it is something that you just come to realize how damn important that really is. Secondly, when you go at this for the first, second, third, or whatever time, I think some of the fundamental matters of the industry itself, and whatever industry that is things you start looking at more deeply. And the way that Next Games and Seriously have both tackled that are different, yet in fundamentals it's quite similar. It's about IP. There's 200 games launching on iOS every day, and it doesn't seem to be...
I think 450 was the last count I heard.
So it's actually like I quote a number that is 2 years old, but that is a really old number, in other words, which is crazy, right? Yeah. That's so many games. So if you look at the fundamentals, how are you going to solve that discovery challenge? And how do you make sure that you convert more eyeballs to downloads than the other guy out there? And IP is probably the best way to do that. You decided to do your own and have a grand ambition, and it looks like you've taken the first really credible steps in executing on that ambition. And you solved that in another way. Rovio solved that in a crazy way a few years ago in their own way, and at a very different time in the industry. There wasn't 450 games launching every day. So how are you going to solve that? And the second bit to that is which I quote our friend Eric Seufert, who coined that term neatly in a keynote, is how to find a game for an audience, and not the other way around. How do we find an audience first? How do we find a game for an audience? Who are we actually targeting, and how are we positioning this product for that audience? And if you get all of these individual things right, and then you end up hiring the right people that can actually make those games, or if you're a game maker yourself, you can actually make those games, great. Then you're off to a reasonable start. And as we've so many times before defined as that luck usually isn't a good strategy.
Yeah.
And that
hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy.
Yes. Petri.
And to add to that, I think a couple of pretty important things in general. There's a lot of good guidelines already out there, but build a network. It's really easy to stay home and build your game or stay within the company, but meet up with friends. Go to conferences, meet up with other developers, and build enough relationships that you can ask for help when you need it. Everyone, even the most experienced veterans out there, actually the most experienced veterans out there do know to ask for help. Whereas if you're just building your dream game in a small company, it's very easy to neglect that part. The more connected you are, the better you're able to read the market, the more feedback you have going back into your system and listening. It's all data points. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Nobody's opinion is the God-honest truth. They're all very subjective. It's all about context. But at the same time, enough of data points that all point to the same direction, then you can probably make decisions based on those. Yeah. And I think that's also very important. The last but not least, follow the thing that you are passionate about. One of the primary reasons why we work on our own IPs is because we're passionate about creating our own world, building our own characters. We want to build IP. That's why this company exists to begin with, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that going forward. And following whatever your core passion is, whatever your core expertise is, stay focused and build the culture, build the company, build the product around that single niche, and you should be fine. To echo what you said is really important about the network and talking to people. I think we're fortunate being in an industry where people actually do talk. Yeah. We're in general, people are not assholes in the games industry, and people do stop and talk and give their opinion. And especially in the Finnish games industry, we break NDAs all the time. We actually talk to each other, and we have a great community where we aspire to learn from each other, which is wonderful setting to be. So move to Finland, which is the last bit.
This might be mostly a home audience, I suspect. But anyway, so last thing, quickly, simply, can indies succeed first time round, or is it inevitable they're going to have to try more than once?
Indies can absolutely succeed on the first time around. Every year there are several examples on people in a basement or bigger teams. There's no reason hits are constantly being shipped. There's not many of them, and there's a lot of people out there taking shots, but everything is possible.
Agreed. I contrary to some level of popular belief, I do not think that Discovery is broken. I fundamentally don't think that Discovery is broken, and what you said is pointing exactly to that direction. You can succeed, and there are, as you said, there's several examples where that happens, and there's several examples of where it happens the second and third time around, and I love the fact that people don't tend to give up in this industry. You have a passion, something you believe in, and you follow it.
Yeah, here on the Discovery is not broken. I also believe that it's not. It's just different. Things change at a very fast pace, and indies certainly can succeed. There's no doubt about that. But you just have to find your own way.
So that leaves us at a conclusion, I think, which is having the experience of 2 or 3 attempts of working with successful companies can be incredibly beneficial because it allows you to focus and get out the gate fast. But at the end of the day, it's that focus and that annoyingly clever friend of ours, Eric's comment, find a game for your audience, not an audience for your game, and then you'll be coming out the blocks to the right level, the right speed, the right target. Then you can still be successful. But don't give up if you're not. There's actually, put everything into being successful, but don't kill yourself in the process, because you want to be able to make sure that you can build on whatever success you get at whatever stage and learn, listen, and share. Thank you. Thank you.